Guys, we're back again. It's myself and the big man, Ben.
Yes, man.
Lovely to have another conversation with you. It's the new year.
New year, new me, you know.
Oh, we're starting with that, yeah?
Nah, I cringe.
Do you? How do you take sort of New Year's resolutions? Do you set resolutions or do you not really do anything like that?
No, definitely not. Yeah, it's a date in the calendar. It doesn't really make a difference, I don't think. I think that's more of a, like New Year's is like a pinnacle thing for people where it's like, they feel very motivated to make a change because they're like, oh man, it's just something that highlights their lack of, you know, what they've done, you know, within the year and how they've not done certain things. So it's just quite motivating for people to want to shift. But I do think that, you know, you should just have goals set regardless. And there shouldn't be a specific time. You know, it should just be something you've been working towards before the new year. But I think, you know, for some people it can work, but personally, it doesn't, like nothing changed for me. I didn't get to 2024 and think, oh, I want to do this differently. I just was like, okay, I need to just keep doing what I'm doing and just do it better consistently for the whole year. You know, it's kind of a different mindset, but yeah, that's how I think about it.
But do you not set resolutions or review? Is there any process that you go through at the end of a year?
To be completely honest, the only thing this year that I thought about was the environment and people I'm around, and how that's affecting my mindset, how that's affecting my energy. So I really took the time to think about like who am I spending time with? How is their energy affecting me? How's their, you know, their value systems and their way of seeing the world? Is that like almost empowering me to be a better person, or is it taking away from me and actually pulling me down? So it's just analyzing like your interactions with people and you know, really just who you want to build those relationships with. So I think that's super important. Like your environment, the people you're around. Yeah, as I say, like your network is your net worth, or you are the 5 people you spend the most time with. So just prioritizing, you know, just taking away things that's probably the main thing. Really, there's not much else I would say. You know, yeah, just that. That's the main thing I'd say.
Yeah. No, me personally, the new year, as much as I try and just stay away from all the riffraff that comes along with when the new year comes around, and there is a lot of it. You got Christmas, you got this, you got that, and everybody's trying to pull you to different places. I do think there is some value in assessing mainly what happened last year, what went well, what didn't go well, and then going into the new year with an idea as to what you want to do differently going into the new year and reviewing your goals. And you'll be surprised, and I was surprised this year, as to how much you change year to year. So a lot of the things that I was going for in 2023, I look back on it now, I'm like, fucking hell. Like, that's not what I want at all. I want things completely differently as I mature, as I get older. The wants and needs for my life are completely different to what they were maybe a few years ago. So I think in that respect, it's good to self-review. But to go in with this sort of steam of, oh yeah, new year, new me, like that shit just burns out. And it's about having a longer vision for your life that you said, regardless of the calendar and stuff like that, you've actually sat down and you've determined, okay, this is what I want to do and go for. And regardless of what day of the year it is and what year it is, you're just going in that direction. But it's good to take time, stop, review, see if you're still on course, see if it's still the destination you want to go to as well, and then start the year.
I think balance is super important. Like you can't just, like people recognize that they've been slacking or they're behind in a certain aspect of their life. So they create these unrealistic, collapsed short-term, oh, okay, I'm going to do this in a week. I'm going to make all this happen. But it creates, it's like an elastic band. It's like you're pulling and it just pulls you straight back to where you were. So having that kind of balance where you're moving towards that goal, but at a pace that actually is like realistic is kind of the thing that I think people do wrong, that they set unrealistic expectations that make, you know, because when you set a goal that's, you kind of subconsciously know it's out of your reach, it makes you feel, you lose enthusiasm. You start feeling, you know, this pressure, you start feeling self-doubt, you start kind of beating yourself up because you kind of know you're not going to hit that goal. And that can sometimes be, you have to really ask yourself, like, is that even your goal? Sometimes that's a goal that's projected, or you're looking at someone else's journey and they're ahead of you. So you're like, man, I need to catch up. But all that does is create, well, from the book Reality Transurfing, it's called excess potential. It's like this excess thing that basically is always going to end up being balanced out at some point. So the key is to just find what your goal is and what's tangible for you, you know, and it's like a car driving on a road at night. You know, you can't see, you know, there's a road that's leading somewhere, right? You can't see all the way to the end of the road, but you can see the headlights and just what's in front of you. That's all you need to see. As long as you can see that, and you follow that path, you eventually get to where you're trying to go. So yeah, it's just finding that goal, setting that goal that's right for you. Because when you set a goal that you actually believe you can achieve, that's actually tangible, and it doesn't matter what other people are doing, then you actually feel positive emotions, because when you start seeing that progress, you feel enthusiastic, you're almost lit up, you're even more motivated to hit that goal because, it's realistic, but it's also slightly, it's like David Data leaning into your edge, just slightly in your edge. And I think that's where the biggest catalyst of growth happens. But again, you have to realize that everyone's on their own individual journey. So it's like the mistake you can make is looking at other people. And I've done this myself. It's crazy how much it can mess you up. Just being like, man, this guy's so far ahead. But it's like, this guy's have completely different life to you, completely different life experience. You just need to do what's right for you. It's almost like when you run the relay, it has like a bend, and there's almost an illusion that someone's running in front of you, but actually you're all actually pretty much on the same lines. So if you believe that these people in front of you, for better or for worse, but what you have to realize is just because right now someone may appear to be ahead of you in some way, it doesn't mean they are. So yeah, that's what I'd say to that.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that analogy of the relay, to be fair. That's a good visual. My take on that kind of thing, just very similar to what you're saying. I like to think of life as a marathon, not a sprint, but not in a conventional sense where people say, oh, well, that means I could be lazy, take my foot off the gas and do this. I'm talking about a professional marathon. Like professional marathon runners sprint when they're doing the marathon, but they have the idea and the understanding that it's a 42-kilometer race or a 26-mile race. They know how long the race is and they pace themselves, but they're still going at a fast pace. So if you live your life like that, I think that's a good way to be. You have the ability to delay gratification and know that you need to pace yourself and go at a steady pace to get to the finish line. But at the same time, you're still going at a fast pace. You're not going slow because you're going to lose a marathon. People are running marathons, 26 miles in 2 hours. That's not a slow pace. That's extremely fast. However, they are pacing themselves throughout the marathon. They're not doing a Usain Bolt, blowing the load in the first 10 seconds, right? So that's the way I like to think about things myself. But I wanted to ask you mentioned something earlier about environment. So why do you think environment is so important, and what has sort of made you come to that realization?
I think firstly, it takes a lot of self-awareness to be aware of like how certain things and people are influencing you. But it's mainly like kind of just when you set a goal, you want everything you think, every thought, word, and deed needs to be in alignment with the version of yourself that is going to attain that goal. And I think that includes, the people you're around. So if you're around people that, especially like when it comes to financially, like people that think very small-minded in terms of money, they think in poverty, they have a poverty mentality. If you start sharing your goals, I want to make this much a month, I want to do this, their reality, that's not possible. So they're going to project their limitations onto you without realizing it's unconscious. But and the thing is, in some cases, your belief system isn't built up strong enough to the point where that doesn't affect you. So that actually does have a negative impact, especially when you're in the process of trying to build, trying to get to where you're trying to go. So, and even in the book Think and Grow Rich and other books like that, this is mentioned where it's like, you don't want to, people's negative inputs, whether it be subconscious, it's almost on a subconscious level, hold you back. So being around people, I find that, and you might sense that like the main thing for me is like a business sort of mindset at the moment. It's like being around guys that are doing certain figures, making a certain amount of money. If I say I make 5K a month, that's like normal to them. That's nothing, So that is setting a new standard that's way higher. And that's, as men, we're competitive creatures, but we're just going to naturally elevate to that. So it's just about making sure you're it's like small fish in a big pond. You don't want to be the big fish in a small pond. Like you always want to be putting yourself in a room where you don't know crap. Like when you're speaking, you're not learning. When you're taking in information, you're the one that's learning. So that's why environment's super key. And naturally we just mirror we mirror the people we live around. And look at anyone. Like when you don't get a kid that's born in China speaking in an American accent, you pick up your environment. It's just the way the world works. So you can use that as leverage to get an advantage in life.
Yeah.
And that's why coaching is so important too. That's why having a mentor, someone who's done the thing you're trying to do, they can make all that information compact and give it to you, which is going to save you, what took them a year or 2 years or 3 years or even 10 years, they can give that to you in 6 months, and that's what makes having a mentor or coach super important. So yeah, that'd be my answer.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's you. Listen, man, this guy's speaking some knowledge right now. If you guys ain't taking this in, then I don't know what's wrong with you. But just to riff on that as well, I've been thinking about this so much recently because I've been reading a lot of books at the start of the year. And what I've started to realize from reading all these books from very wealthy people who have done a lot and they're very successful, the results that you have in your life are determined by the actions that you take in your life. The actions that you take in your life are determined by the beliefs that you hold. So if you have a certain belief about making money and things like that, let's say you grew up in a family of purebred entrepreneurs, for example, and when you're around the dinner table, instead of speaking about Shelley in the 9 to 5 and how she's a bit of a bitch or whatnot, you were sat there thinking about the problems that are in the world and solutions on how to solve the problems. Your idea of how you're going to make money in life is going to be completely different to somebody that came from a family of people that worked a 9 to 5 and swept the streets, just by the environment that you're in. So what you've been exposed to, the data that you've been exposed to in your life will determine the belief systems that you end up basically creating, because beliefs are essentially just perceptions that are clustered together. So you see somebody doing something, you've read something, you've seen this happen here and there. Those perceptions come together to form a belief. They're the building blocks of your belief, what you've seen. So if you haven't been exposed to certain things, you're not going to have the belief system you need to achieve certain results. So when I've looked at this, I was like, okay, cool. If my beliefs are based on clusters of perceptions, then how do you change your belief system? Well, that means you need to get new data into the machine to build new beliefs. In turn, that's going to change your actions, and then in turn, that's going to change your results. Okay, so how do you do that then? Well, first thing, like you mentioned, is coaching or some form of mentorship that you get. It could be books, courses, masterminds, or mentorships. Consume new ideas from people that have the results that you want in your life. When you do that, you're getting new data, you're seeing new ways of doing things. From that, you're forming new perceptions, which equals new beliefs. The other way I looked at it is getting exposure through your circle and the environment that you're in. And this is where it's fucking interesting based on what you said about environment, because if you really look at human beings on a genetic level, this is not no hogwash, this is actual science. On a genetic level, we were designed to be social creatures. We are designed socially. Our DNA was created in tribes and we've grown up in tribes. Our DNA is historic in that way. So because of that, we're very susceptible to taking on other people's beliefs and way they see the world. That's not something that it's something that you naturally do. So if it is a natural process, in my opinion, it's like you might as well use that to your advantage and have it in a way where you're basically using your own genetics and the way the human sort of body was designed to your advantage. And if you're surrounded by people that have sort of poverty-stricken beliefs, you cannot be around that energy and be around people with those beliefs without some of it sticking. If you put your hand in a pot of glue and you pull your hand out of the pot of the glue, some of the glue is going to stick to your hand. And that's human nature. We're designed to get along, to go along. So by changing your circle and being around people that have different beliefs or have the results that you want to get or are on the same path to, want the same things as you, you're using your own genetics within your body to actually aid your success and rewire your brain to where you want to get. So it is extremely important that you do have a circle that's around you that's like on the same wave as you. And even with you, I noticed it. You were saying about the podcast the other day and how obviously you wanted to do another one. You're just like, oh mate, I love the way you were just like, fuck it, let's do it.
Yep, 100%.
That's what you need, man. Speed.
But I also think you don't need to be like some super multi-millionaire for people to want to be around you. I just think if you have optimism, you have positive energy, you're enthusiastic, and it's like the saying, I was actually reading the book on the way here, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's like, as a man thinketh, so to speak. If you think you are that ideal future version of yourself, then you kind of are in a weird way. So like when you're around certain people, they're going to sense that, oh my God, this guy actually believes that he's going to get there, and they're going to want to mentor you. They're going to want to, because they're going to see a bit of themselves in you. And that's the secret. So
100%. And I think if you look at any of the great leaders from the past, I studied a lot of Napoleon last year and seen how he sort of rallied the troops in the army. They had a vision that superseded everybody else that was underneath them. So I believe your level of leadership in the world, you talk about people following you and getting around you and stuff like that. Your level of leadership is determined by your level of vision that you have for your own life and what you think is possible. If you think that you could do more than what people believe you can do or what everybody else can do in the room. I guarantee people are going to jump on a bandwagon. Yeah, you're going to get haters who are going to say, no, you can't do that. You ain't good enough to do that. And they're going to project their own insecurities onto you. But I guarantee you're going to have a shitload of people behind you that are going to rally behind you, believe in your vision just because you believe in it yourself. And I definitely think there's an element of it where you need to have clarity in what you're doing. Clarity is a fucking superpower, man. I heard that from somebody who's extremely wealthy. He was like, clarity is a superpower. If you know where you're going and what you want, it's infectious when it comes to getting around other people.
But that's one of them tricky things that like people are like, man, what is my purpose? Like what is that clarity? And I don't think it's as complicated as like we make it out to be. I think we feel like we need this super clear goal, but I feel like it's very simple. Like, especially when it comes to like what I do with coaching, the guys that come to me, they just know deep down that this is messing, like this bad habit of watching these videos and doing these certain acts is making them feel so negative. Their inclination is pulling them, or there's this like mechanism inside them that's pulling them to that better version of themselves. They just feel it, right? So that is purpose in a very like microscopic sense. And you get to that place, and then from that place, there's another thing you want to obtain. You've solved that problem. Now you want to maybe earn your own income, or you want to get in better shape, or you want to be more social, or you want to be more confident. And it's like all these little things. So it doesn't matter what the goal is, whether it be, just an internal goal of like, I want to improve myself, be more confident, or if it's a material thing, it doesn't matter. As long as there's something that's like almost in the future that you're working towards, that is purpose. You taking action towards that, and again, aligning your thoughts towards that thing, that is purpose. It's as simple as that. You don't need to have this grand 10-year plan. No one really knows what's going to happen in 10 years, So it's just listening to that little voice inside of you. And I think a lot of people don't know how to do that. I think a lot of people do things based on logic. They think, okay, well, I want a car, I want a yacht. And it's like, again, like that's not, you need to listen to that voice deep down. And it could just be one small thing. Like, I want to quit, I want to leave this job. Like this job is, or I want to leave this relationship, or I'm drawn towards this person, I want to spend time with them. Because like these every micro decision you ever made in your life has led us to this exact moment. Everything we're wearing, every single microscopic decision we made has led us to where we are. So like we have free will. We can choose any path. We can do anything we want. There are other things external that are out of our control, but fundamentally we get to choose what we do every single day. And what I think that really comes down to is how present are you? How focused are you? Are you actually driving the car, or is something else driving you? We live in the age of distraction. There is literally TikTok, there's porn, there's, drugs. There's literally, you have access to like more stimulants than ever before. And so people are just not even, they're not present. They're not conscious. They can't hear that voice inside of themselves. They're so distracted. They're coping. They're numbing themselves. So if you can just get focused, like I think that's the biggest thing that determines success. Because success isn't easy. If it was easy, everyone would have it, right? So, and it's also your mind. It's your thoughts. Like again, as I think of, your thoughts are things. They manifest. If you think a thought of any ill thoughts, you will manifest or attract negative things. If you purely think pure thoughts, you can't really inhabit, your internal state creates your external reality. So like if you're internally thinking, a little bit of doubt, even when it comes to the gym, when I go to the gym and I lift a weight I've never lifted before, I don't let even the 1% of doubt enter my body. I just tell my body, I'm going to lift this weight, and I visualize that weight moving. Because why would I allow doubt in, Because that's only going to then manifest. If that thought doesn't exist, it can't then become something else. If you only think thoughts of success, it's like, that's what you're going to attract. So yeah, that's kind of what ties into the other question.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree, especially what you said about purpose. I actually done a video on it like last couple of years, speaking about that, because that's something that I actually went through a bit of an existential crisis, I would say, when I was like 24. Thinking like, fuck, what's my purpose? So I need to find out what I want to do with my life. I think a lot of people probably go through that in their mid-20s. And it's very, very difficult because you obviously see a lot of successful people say, oh yeah, know what you want to do and do it. And I found my purpose in this and the next. And I think it's a good thing to actually go through the existential crisis of not knowing what you want to do or not knowing what your purpose is, quote unquote, because you have a higher chance of actually finding your purpose than the person that hasn't gone through the existential crisis. But my conclusion when I came down to it, I studied ancient mystics from Eastern sort of part of the world, India, Sadhguru, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. I studied people in the West, William James, Dr. John D. Martini. I studied everything I could on purpose to try and figure out how to find my purpose. And the conclusion I came down to was, okay, the actual purpose of life, there isn't an inherent purpose of life. That's the funny thing about it. But every human being has a specific set of values that are very fingerprint specific to them. And your values are essentially based on your voids. So if you, let's say, grew up, an example of this, I knew a girl, actually, I've seen her, and she runs an aesthetics business now where she does like Botox and filler and lip filler and this, that, and the next. And I asked her how she got into it. And she was like, well, when I was younger, I always saw myself as sort of the ugly one out of my group of friends as a female, right? So she had a void on her own beauty. Well, it's funny how she's now gone into a business where she does facial aesthetics and values that. But like I said, your values are based on your void. So whatever you see as a void in your life, you're going to want to import into your life, and it becomes important to you. For example, you're saying about money right now. That's something that's on your mind. Okay, I want to increase my finances. That's a void that you have. Okay, now you have a value on money. Your values and your purpose are actually essentially the same thing, exactly what you're saying. And once you fulfill it, you move on to the next thing, like you said. So you might, a lot of guys, I feel, in the beginning, it starts out with women, right? Oh, I want to get girls. The moment they start getting women, they start thinking about getting money, right? And that's obviously where Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes along. You get your basic survival, then you get your reproductive survival, then you eventually go on to self-actualization, which is like making a difference in the world and this, that, and the next. So I would say to anybody that wants to find their purpose and doesn't know what it is, don't stress it too much. I'd say look at where you feel deficient in your life, what your voids are, and then from there, you're going to figure out what you need to do. And that's just the next step. Once you fulfill that part of your purpose, you move on to something else. So this something that is ever changing throughout your life.
Yeah, no, that is beautifully said. It's the same with the semen rotation. I tell my clients, like, you know, this is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Like this thing, you think it's a big problem, mate. Once you solve this and it's in the back of your mind, it's not gonna be in your awareness anymore. You know, problems you had when you were younger, like. Like once you realize it's not important, it just disappears out of your awareness, and then you'll focus on something else. It's the same principle. And I was the same, chasing girls. Like that was, you know, again, like I've actually never heard that before, so that was quite interesting. But yeah, like the void was, oh man, I'm not confident with girls. Like, so I wanted to improve that, and now I'm at this point, and we've spoke about this, like where it's like I've proven that I can He's
proven, guys.
Yeah, I've proven I get these nice girls on dates, and I can meet them, and they like me and stuff. And like, okay, so do I need to keep beating a dead horse? Like, if that's not really what's right for me right now, let's see if I can have enough self-discipline to just push that to one side and just fully focus on something else. And since doing that, I found that like Brown, like my growth is like exponential in terms of what I can accomplish when I have no distractions. And like, again, I think I don't know if you've read many Napoleon Hill's books, but both books, Outwitting the Devil and Think and Grow Rich, he mentions sexual transmutation and like how sex is kind of like a leech energetically. And it makes sense. I mean, you look at, like, get a bit weird, but like you look at the female reproductive system, it absorbs, it takes, the male is giving. So it's like we are like, you know, we're like a masculine force that's driving, and it's like things want to take from us, and it's we can consciously choose. Do we share that, or do we just maintain it for ourselves? And if you can just focus and channel that energy to one specific goal, you know, that you are working towards, the likelihood of you completing it is much, much more likely. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back in this modern world. It's like distractions. You know, I think that is what a lot of people have goals. And even for me, like even just beating, it's almost like addiction you can't get away from. Like I got to use Instagram for my business. It's constantly, I'm pretty good at it at the moment, but it takes a lot of focus, you know, it takes a lot of energy just to avoid. There's not even the energy to do the thing. It's just the energy to avoid looking at videos or, you know, looking at some stupid Instagram reel or something. You get mentally fatigued, and then it's like an easy way out, you know. So we just live in the age of distraction. Like maybe 100 years ago, they didn't have, you know, you could just sit in silence and write a book. You know, people nowadays just don't. We almost don't have that luxury. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like a double-edged sword. So yeah, you yourself, you're a guy. You know, you've come a long way from probably your former self through self-improvement to where you are now. So what were some of the key things that made you feel, you know, to help other guys to make a man more attractive in the modern world? What actually makes a man attractive in this modern world?
Yeah, well, I look at it like If I was to describe to you, I said I've got a friend coming in for you, Ben. She's gonna come in. She got blonde hair, it's long and flowing. She got blue eyes, the smoothest skin you've ever seen in your life, the beautiful smile, white teeth, small hips, wide waist, nice back off, nice, up top as well. Let's just put it that way. She's on point. I'm describing that girl to you, and I can see your faces lighting up.
Well, I like brunettes,
but just by me describing this female, I could guarantee every single man who would be introduced to a woman like that would be attracted to her. The reason why I can say that with a lot of confidence is because on a genetic level, you're designed to seek a woman like that out for her reproductive abilities. And this is something that scientifically as men, you're designed to seek. So the good thing about it is that us as men, God, whoever it is, the big bang, internal combustion, I don't know, whatever you want to blame it on, this force that moves the world also gave women these same buttons within themselves as well. So the game of becoming attractive is essentially figuring out that what on a genetic level women are looking for. What is it genetically that her DNA is designed to seek out and reproduce with? Once you know what that is, you can obviously start to morph yourself into that guy. And it sounds, some people say that sounds sleazy, but that is literally what every single guy on the planet's doing. That's what advertising's doing. That's what marketing's based on. That's what all commercials in the world are based on. That is the aim of the game in life, is to reproduce. So figuring out what on a scientific genetic level women are looking for is a good thing that you could do. So when I've looked at it, I would say there's 3 things that guarantee can get a man from probably a 3 out of 10 if he's a 3 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 or a 9, in my opinion. Number 1, I would say, is actually building muscle. And the good thing about it is you don't need to look like Sam Selleck or Chris Bumstead to have the right amount of muscle on your frame. If you want to know how much muscle to build, I say look at somebody like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. I think that is the ideal level of muscle for attraction, I would say. The moment you go beyond that, you become a bit too big. But when you build muscle, think about it, right? In order to actually build muscle, you need to have excess calories within your body. Yeah. So when you are building muscle and you have a lot of muscle on your frame, that shows the woman on a genetic level that you have the ability to, 1, protect and provide, and 2, gather resources for yourself, because you have an excess amount of muscle. You're not frail. You're not skinny. You've been eating well. Women are designed to seek men that can protect and can provide. So by you having more muscle on your frame, you are indicating to the woman that you can protect and provide from your appearance. Step number 2, I was saying the big 3, and this is so key. You need to have a low body fat percentage. You can have a lot of muscle on your frame and have a high body fat percentage and still look like shit. Or you can have no muscle on your frame and have a high body fat percentage and still look like shit. But what I would say, there's people who are skinny as fuck and they have no muscle, but they have a low body fat percentage and they look the bollocks still. My brother is one of them guys. He will self-admit it to you. My brother doesn't train in the gym at all. Yeah, he's a genetic outlier in the sense that he's 6'7". However, he has a low body fat percentage and his face looks completely different to guys that have high body fat percentage. And again, it's another health indicator on a DNA genetic level to the woman that you're showing her that you're healthy, because you obviously, let's say you do step 1 and you build muscle and then you get to a low body fat percentage. Yeah, you're vascular at that point as well. That shows that you've got good blood flow. Your face starts to lean down, and women are designed to seek men that have high testosterone because it's a sign that they can reproduce, and it's a sign that they can protect and provide as well, having high testosterone. So when you have a sharp jaw and your face is slimmed down, that is a sign of high testosterone in a man, and you only get that feature on a man if he's at a lower body fat percentage. So combining that with having muscle is key. Step number 3, I would say, of the big 3, which is vital, is to be well groomed and have good hygiene. On a genetic level, yeah, it shows that you're healthy and you haven't fucking caught the famine and you don't stink like shit, right? But let's say you're in shape, for example, you got muscle and you're lean, but you've got a haircut that looks like it was done by a blind man, for example, and you stink like mildew. You're not going to get any girls. So you need to be well groomed and have good hygiene as well. So what I say to guys, put a skincare routine in place, fucking wash yourself twice a day and wash your bollocks. You know what I mean? A lot of guys don't do that. Trim your body hair as well, because that will make your physique look better, and also it will keep the odors away from your body as well. If you have a shitload of hair on your armpits, for example, and you're sweating throughout the day, it's going to cling to it more. So it's just basic hygiene. I would say they're the big 3 things that you would do.
I would say that those are like the somewhat, I guess you could say, surface level. You could argue somewhat superficial, basic essentials that have to be ticked.
They're the big 3, man. Like, that's what I say. They're the big 3.
Yeah, but I also would
On a looks perspective.
But I would counter or at least question your point. Okay, like I think we all know like that one guy who's like a drug dealer. Like this is my question to you: is like, you know, he's a drug dealer and he's just a skinny guy. He wears like very, you know, it doesn't really look particularly attractive. But yeah, maybe he's got some dime piece girl. Why is that? Like why? What's at play there?
Yeah, that's a good question. And to be fair, I should have preferenced what I said in the beginning by saying when I'm speaking about attraction, that's just about the physical side of things, just physical. Because if you say that I described the girl to you, she's got blonde hair, she's got long hair, small hip to waist ratio, right? Or if I described a girl to you and I said, okay, she's a librarian, she's really nice, she cooks good food. The one thing you're thinking as a man is, what does she look like, right? If I go to a female and I say, okay, I've got a guy, he's 6'4", massive dick, you know.
You're doing about me.
Broad shoulders, six pack, flipping, clear skin, nice smile. Okay, he sounds interesting. The one thing she's thinking in her head is, what does he do? So when it comes to the idea of you were saying about this guy who's a bit of a bum, he's a drug dealer, this and the next, women are more interested in what you do than how you look. I believe so. Anyway, that's been my recollection. And I think women are designed to seek survival value in a guy, whereas we're designed to seek replication value in a woman, right? So survival value means, okay, he needs to have a good job, he needs to live somewhere good, he needs to be able to protect and provide. And that provision is very, very important to attraction. But I was just speaking on a basic level of physical.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I'd say, you know, there's a difference between having, doing, and being, and that the former is a weaker version than the latter. So like having is just like, say, buying the outfit, looking good, right? It sort of needs to be done. Doing is, you know, kind of like, and this kind of ties back to, I remember our last podcast, we talked about red porn. I sort of dismissed it, but then I thought about it. I was like, actually, that's not true. Like that's very misleading the way I've put that. Because that is it is important, but it's that doing of like doing certain things to then perceive, you know, be perceived in that attractive way. But then there's the final one, that's being. Instead of having to, you know, do these things that are like external in order to make up or compensate for what you lack, you actually be, you know, you are that version of you. And I think that's the part that people, like, you know, you have to realize who you actually, I don't think people even know who they are, because there's that saying, fake it till you make it. But I heard this thing once that it's not fake it till you make it, it's act real until you remember. Maybe you don't even know who you are. Like maybe you don't even know that you're a killer. Maybe you don't even know that you're a leader. You just, because again, potentially your environment has never allowed you to actually, you know, feel, you know, it's like being a skinny guy, you have sick genetics, but if you never actually lift the weight, you're never going to see the potential of which you can grow. So I think for women, what's attractive is competency in all facets of life, because naturally the feminine is submissive. It wants to look up to a man. It doesn't want to be better than him. So what you're referring to in terms of looks, like even fashion, even fitness, intellect, finances, women want to look up. That's what's going to make them attracted to you. So that's what it is. And I don't think that always, you know, I think you can leverage certain traits that sort of override the need to be 6'4" and jacked. It's very hard to do. It's hard to do, like Jason Statham, like his girlfriend or whatever's taller than him, whatever. But I think that comes down to your character, and that ties into that being element of, I think even from the book Reality Transurfing, there's a bit where they said they put, in Russia, I think, they put politicians that committed crimes into the prisons as a form of punishment. But what actually ended up happening was that these politicians became the leaders of the actual prison. So it shows that, you know, it doesn't matter. Some people have a certain substance to them, a certain type of energy to them that supersedes and can bypass those sort of, you know, lower level animalistic things. But again, it's a very complicated question. But
yeah, no, you touched on a key point, and it's so funny. Like you said, last podcast, you look back on it and you're like, okay, I could have answered a few things differently and whatnot. But this is why it's so good to get out there and do these kind of things, because it makes you refine your process of thinking and really think about what you want to say and solve these problems in your own life, and obviously, hopefully help other people. So you asked me a question last time, which was, how would you describe masculinity? And the answer I gave last time was extreme ownership, which I agree with, but I think a better way of putting it is exactly how you just put it, which is, to me, masculinity is just competence. When you're competent, like you said, across the board in all facets of life, health, wealth, relationships, socially, spiritually, wisdom-wise, business-wise, you've got it ticked down. That, to me, is a sign of true masculinity. when you can solve problems, because women will come into your life and women are going to bring problems, and you need to be able to solve those problems for her, whether that's financially or safety problems or whatever it is. A sign of a true man to me is a man that could just solve problems and get shit done. That to me is ultimately what masculinity is: being able to solve problems, not being emotional, and just getting on with it and cracking on.
Yeah, no, I definitely 100% agree. I also, to tie back to what I said, I think the things I said, I definitely agree, like in terms of honor, but I would say a big thing ties into again to competency, but taking responsibility, being willing to take on responsibility. Again, in terms of your relationship, being taking responsibility for the relationship, being the leader, that I like that. There's a thing where it's like people say they're an alpha. It's like, or like they're a sigma, or like all this stuff. It's like I'm neither of those. I'm a leader. Like that's kind of the way I like to see it. Is like that's again, it's like a different ball game. But no, one thing I was going to add was you can have a look. It's just not. I think when you decide that you're no longer a victim and you stop making excuses and you actually take full responsibility for your life and you're self-reliant and independent, I think that's a big thing, especially in masculinity. Again, ties into that competency, and I think that's what's so attractive. Like, it's all willing. I think if you were to speak to a woman, it's like, what's more attractive, having your own business or just working a 9 to 5? Nothing against people that do 9 to 5s, but it's like, have you ever noticed when you go out, guys will lie to girls and say, "Oh, I've got a business and this." Why do they lie? Why are they lying? It's because they subconsciously, fundamentally understand that that's, again, it's an attractive thing. Like, oh man, or you have money. Money's attached to power. Women want, physicality, broad shoulders, muscles is associated with power. It's associated with dominance. That's a masculine trait. That's the trait of a leader. So I think that's what ties into it. But I also think that those things can be used. I think there's also a responsibility to, with power comes responsibility. So, it's not just a case of having these traits of money and success and, being confident and all this stuff. That they're all attractive, but it's also like being a good person, not being a tyrant, not being someone who abuses their power or uses force, can actually, lead some, because I think a lot of people think dominance is force. It's not. Dominance is, people want to be led by you. That's the key. They want you to lead them because they trust you, because they look at you and think, this guy knows the fucking way. This guy's got direction. This guy's got clarity. I'm listening to him. He's proven that he's done X, Y, and Z. He's got the proof. He doesn't need to force. He doesn't need to lie. He is the real deal. And I think that's what people are trying to make that. They're trying to get to that point without actually getting there. They're trying to bypass. And that's why people focus a lot on looks. And, I reckon you could take a guy like, the things you said at the start, you could rip away those things and just give all those traits I just described. A woman's going to just see past. He might even stink. She'll think, I don't care. This guy's the fucking leader. I want to be with him, So that's a side point. I don't know what you think of that. But
yeah, no, I think there's an element of truth in it for sure, in terms of women maybe going for a guy like that. But you mentioned something about victimhood and getting out of victimhood. Obviously, in today's world, we're told to embrace our feelings and it's okay to shed a tear and this, that, and the third. Do you think men should be emotional?
That's a great question. Well, really, it's figuring out, firstly, what emotion actually is. So, I always think of emotion as energy in motion. So it's like you're feeling, you're experiencing. That's what life really is. Life is an amalgamation. I think that's the right word. I think I'm throwing words around, but it's a compilation of different emotions. Those emotions then generate your thoughts and your experience of life, right? That's why we do all the things we do, is to feel emotion. So what I think you're referring to is emotional in the sense of should you go home and complain about work? And, it ties into what we said before about having that complete responsibility. I think, like I said, when you understand what women are looking for, they're looking for a leader, looking for a rock. That's what defines masculinity. Then you could also work out that, okay, maybe showing excessive amounts of weakness and being too vulnerable and too free flowing, you need to ask yourself, how is that going to affect the person you're with? Are they going to feel safe? Are they going to feel like you are that competent, capable man that they want to be with? Because bear in mind, the women are always in the present moment. We're much more long-term based. Women live in the present. It's like just how they're designed survivally. So I think I'm not complete. I think people would take things too far. I think if you cry in front of your girlfriend or your wife, whatever, it really just depends on the circumstances. But I think you shouldn't be overly emotional. I don't think. I think there's yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult, for me, it's a difficult question to answer, but I think overall, I would say it's good to have passion. It's good to love. It's good to have a desire. But I also think, things like anger or things like being upset or overly, I think, say, for example, somebody dies in the family, to say that you can't grieve is not, that's unrealistic. But I think there's a certain point at which it's like, okay, now we keep it moving. Now we reorganize, we continue, we keep moving forward. So it's not so much the emotion, it's the response to the emotion, how you deal with it. I think that's important. It's not saying be a man and feel nothing. It's more a case of, okay, here's the emotion you're dealing with. How are you going to deal with it? And that's really what she wants to see. She doesn't care if you're having we all go through hard things in life, but she doesn't care so much that you're experiencing something. It's more just a case of like how you actually respond to it, how you deal with it. And if you can do that in the right way and show strength and show perseverance and resilience, then there's nothing wrong with experiencing some form of emotion, I guess.
So you don't think it's bad to cry in front of a woman?
I do think it's bad, yeah. I don't think it's a good thing to do. For keeping it 100% real, I've done it. Like, I've done it, and I definitely noticed it's weird. It's a weird thing, like, there's definitely some biological thing that's going on. So I wouldn't recommend it, no. I'd say if you're going to do it with, like, your family or do it with, like, your friends. I think that's just a basic rule, really, when it comes to relationships. As strange as it sounds, and what's interesting, and I'm sure you agree, is women will be like, oh no, we want you to open up, we want you to be vulnerable and stuff. Like, they say that stuff, but that's coming from their logical mind. It's not coming from their biology. Their biology is thinking something, is doing and experiencing something way different, and they don't even really know how they're going to react. So yeah, I'll let you add to that.
No, I if I'm keeping it 100, I've cried in front of a woman as well, and I'll never do it again in my life, ever again. I'll tell you this, yeah, if you think about it, you've never ever lost a girl in your life, and I guarantee a lot of men will agree with this, they've never ever lost a woman in their life for being unemotional. You always fucking lose a girl if you're too emotional, but you'll never lose a girl if you're unemotional. No matter what she says, she might say you weren't emotionally connected to her. Bullshit, right? You lose women when you're emotional as a man, and she does not respect you being emotional towards her. She respects you to be stoic, take responsibility, be competent, be solid as a man at all times. And if you do need counsel and you are going through some shit, you fucking better go to your boys and speak about it instead of going to your girl.
But that ties into the environment. If you've got a good environment around, you've got good people around you, switched on people that are wise and intelligent, they're going to support you.
Yeah, and I'll say this right now, it's controversial, but fuck it, yeah? I don't want to go to a woman for advice anyway.
Yeah, that's very true.
I don't want to go to her for advice. She hasn't got the advice that I need in my life.
She can't deal with masculine problems.
She cannot deal with masculine problems. I'd rather go to my boys who know the shit that I'm going through and who have the receipts to prove that they can get me through it because they've done it in their lives as well.
Yeah, and I'd say a woman's approach to solving a problem is going to be, they're not going to understand, like, the masculine desires. Like, men are going to be like, oh mate, go train, go do this, go do that. Girls are going to, what the girls do when they're going through a problem, they need to express it, they need to vent it, they need to go dance on the dance floor or eat a bunch of food or go to the cinema. That may solve the feminine's issue, but that by no means solves the masculine issue. And if you give a problem, if you give a masculine problem the feminine solution, it might just make you more feminine. It might just turn you into a version of yourself you don't necessarily want to be. One thing I'll add too is, I think there was a study that showed women find faces. So like when they see a face that's sort of frowning and not smiling or showing no emotion, they said they find that face more attractive than a guy that's like smiling, which is very fascinating.
That is interesting.
I think girls as well, they like, I think that ties back to that, in the sense that it's like they're more attracted to that stoic, that ability to be a rock, to deal with things, to be competent, So yeah.
How important do you think money is when it comes to getting women?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think part of it is, I don't think women always are attracted to money. I think they're attracted to what it took to earn the money. Those traits of persistence, of intelligence, of hard work, dedication, that self-belief, those are the traits that come with money in some cases, not always. Some people are given money, and I also think that attracts certain type of women too. I don't think every woman is drawn to money the same as others. But I think fundamentally, like, is it important? Absolutely. When we live in a world that is governed by money, if you don't have that, you're going to be limited. And again, it's that level of competency. Now, there's obviously exceptions to the rule where it's like a girl will be with someone, who's not got money, but she can see potential in him. Like, this guy's working towards something, he's going to get there. But if you're just some bum who has no care in the world, doesn't care about money, I think you'll very much struggle. You know, it's almost like saying, oh, I don't need water. Like, you know, these are things that you kind of need. You can't really do much in life if you don't have them. So I think money is super important. And I think, it ties into that power, you know, like there's that video of a man Gadji like showing his bank account to that girl he works with, and she's like going all like hot and flustered because it's impressive, you know, it's attractive. It's like in the gym you could lift a weight that girls like, what the hell, like how are you doing that? Again, it's showing that level of competency, and they're impressed by that, you know. So yeah, I'd say money is super important. But what
I think it's important for yourself as a man, just for your own self-worth, right? When you're skint, yeah, and you ain't got no money in your account, you don't know where your next meal's coming from, you don't feel good about yourself. Do you get what I'm saying? Just that alone is a reason to start trying to earn some wealth, not about even getting the girl. But if we do extrapolate that into getting the girl, let's say you're not feeling 100, you go and try a cold approach a girl on the street, for example. It's not going to go that well for you because you don't feel that good inside about yourself. So when you do have some money in your pocket, you've got a nice place you could take her back to if things go well, or you could pay for a date if you go out without fear of your card declining, for example. You walk with a different energy within yourself, and that carries a long way when you are interacting with her, right? So it's not necessarily the numbers in your bank account. And I don't necessarily think you need to be a multi-millionaire or even extremely wealthy. I think you just need to have enough money to pay your bills, pay for your rent, live in a decent place, drive a decent car. Not
just
anything.
financial freedom, really, I would argue.
Yeah, but like, let's say even if you're working a 9 to 5, but you could pay for a nice dinner and have a decent lifestyle, you've got enough money to get women. You don't need to be a multi-millionaire if it's just about attracting women and things like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, that's what I would say on that.
I also say it's how you make your money too, because one thing I've experienced is having like my own business and making my money. It feels so different to getting paid by someone else.
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
There's a certain frequency that you embody when you're doing something you're actually passionate about, that's actually helping people, and you're getting financially compensated, and also just having the freedom attached to it too. That for me is again, and like you said, that how it makes you feel. You just embody this different kind of energy that's I would say somewhat even unrelatable in some cases. Like one thing I've noticed, the book, and the book Reality Transfer, I keep bringing it back to it, but it really, I didn't really understand what that was, but that book explained it's, you kind of step out of the matrix, you could say, or there's other words you can use to describe it. And it's like, well, now what do I do? You're almost disconnected from this reality that everyone else is in. And it can be kind of difficult because you don't really know what to do next. Like it does feel like that sometimes, but that's where you create your own, you create your own matrices, you create your own purposes. And that's the beauty of it. So, but having that, you just emit you're on a higher frequency all the time, and that's another thing. I think is how you're getting your money, because you could get your money by, again, being a drug dealer or like just doing some degenerate stuff or whatever. So I think coupling that with doing something that's actually somewhat given back to the world, that's something you enjoy, is super important too.
So obviously you're quite early on in your entrepreneurial journey, but if somebody wanted to get started in entrepreneurship, what would be your advice to them?
Just need an idea, really. You just need a game plan. You need best thing to do is don't reinvent the wheel. Just follow a structure that's proven. Like we were speaking about earlier, Alex Hormozy has given you that basic blueprint of how to create an offer, how to generate leads. And then it's just a case of, once you've got that structure, you can then start implementing, you can start taking action. I could explain back to that point of that like cake. Like if someone said, all right, there's a cake, go make it. You can see what the cake is. You can see it's made of chocolate. You can see it's X, Y, and Z, but you don't know how to make it. You know it's possible because someone's done it, but you don't know how to make it. But then if I give you a book that has all the ingredients, all the measurements, how long to do this, how long to do that, then all of a sudden what was so confusing and now there's actually a blueprint to achieve that, and you can then take those steps, implement it, and then get the desired result that you want. But it takes action, and a lot of things we idealize on our head and realize is much more complicated than we are. So it's just that level of perseverance. And you're going to fail. Just be willing to fail, I think. And fail is part of the process,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tricky one for me to say, but I think just have an idea, have a plan, find a plan, or find someone that's doing what you want to do, mimic them, or again, the same ties back to get around them, and then find out what that first step is towards that goal, and just step by step. That's what I would say.
That's good advice. I would add to that, I'd say once you're a bit further along the path, the thing that I see a lot of people fall into, the trap they fall into, is they're constantly thinking about what they can produce. Oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Instead of thinking about what the world actually needs. And I think that's where you should focus a lot of your attention. What are the nagging problems within your own life and within your immediate circle? If you look in your own life and you look in the 5 closest people towards you, and you say, cool, what's their biggest problem they're facing right now? Think of a solution on how to solve the problem they're going through. That's how you make money. That is the aim of the game. And I heard a quote one time that stuck with me. And it basically goes like this, where if you're poor right now and you're not financially where you want to be, it's just a sign that you don't care enough about humanity. And I agree with that, because money comes from solving other people's problems. Whether that's you're working a 9 to 5, you're working within a business that's created a structure to solve problems, or whether you're an entrepreneur, you are the one going out there finding solutions and solving problems. And entrepreneurship is essentially a game of figuring out problems that need solving within the world and going around solving them for other people. You've taken your time to solve a problem for somebody else, and you're getting compensated for that. But I think a lot of people approach entrepreneurship with a very narcissistic view of what they can do and what they can get out of it, as opposed to what they can give other people. And that's obviously one of the things mentioned in $100 million offers, is essentially he says, you need to create a grand slam offer, which is something that is a no-brainer. Somebody needs to pull their card out and pay you because there's so much value packed within it. So I'd say that's definitely something that people need to focus on as well.
What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? I picked that number up because that's, they say your 20s is that number where it's like, oh, what are you going to do in, what you do in your 20s? Like, so yeah, you're kind of at that manhood point. So yeah, what if you could go back in time and like, you could time travel and like your 20-year-old self is there just doing whatever he's doing. Don't know what he'd be up to, but yeah, what would you say if you could just grab him? Like you've got 5 minutes to just like grab this guy and just be like, look, mate, I'm Carter from the future. Like, give him some advice. I'll tell
him to buy Bitcoin.
Do you know that? Fair enough, man. Fair enough.
Buy Bitcoin at 10K.
But would that be good though? Would that be good? Because what would that teach him? He would just get a bunch of money.
Yeah, no, I've gone down that road, mate. I've gone down that road. I bought the.
Because it's like a tree with no roots, It's like it blows over easily.
Yeah, that's a good question in terms of what I would do if I was 20 years old. I think definitely I would have got in the gym a little bit sooner. I mean, I've always trained. I've done martial arts when I was 18, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, played basketball as well at a decent level when I was younger as well. But I never actually tried to put on size. So I would have tried to put on size a lot sooner and got that out of the way sooner, because I'm doing it now. And I've gotten a decent amount of size now and whatnot. I'm feeling good about myself. However, if I'd done that sooner and sort of done that earlier on, it would have set me forward, and I would have got a lot more respect in a lot of the rooms that I was in, because I think when you're young, people just don't take you serious. Part of it comes down to the frame that you have as well when you're younger. But when you pack out your frame, you get a lot more respect from people when you walk in a room. So I'd have ticked that box early on. The other thing I would have done, I probably would have produced a lot more. So put myself out there a lot more. And it's funny, there's a book called, I don't know what it is. It's basically the regrets of people that are dying, essentially, right? And one of the regrets of the dying is that they never done they worried too much about other people's opinions of themselves instead of just going for it. And 100% I probably fell into that trap. I think a lot of people go into that trap of being worried about what people think about them, and it stops them from producing. But looking at the landscape and the way the world's evolved over the last 6 years, and how people are making money in the creator economy and value creators and people making shitload of money off personal brands, a lot of these people, I don't think they're more intelligent than me. I don't think they're more intelligent than probably a lot of the population, but they're just willing to go out there, and they have enough self-worth within themselves to put themselves out there and try different shit and iterate on that stuff over and over again. So if I was 20 again, I probably would have focused a lot of my attention on building a personal brand from a young age, putting myself out there and living a lot more on the edge of my comfort zone than I probably did when I was 20 years old. Because I definitely feel I was a bit too comfortable at 20, and I wasn't putting myself... Yeah, so my thing that I was doing when I was 20 years old, I was trading a lot. So I was in the financial markets, and to be fair, I was going for it big time. I spent a lot of money on courses and education. I got mentored in Birmingham by a big company. I won't say their name out of respect. But I realized that a lot of the stuff they were teaching me probably wasn't the game. They were good businessmen in terms of getting people into the course, but in terms of actually teaching the art of trading, they weren't the people that I needed to go to. So I spent a lot of my time doing that. I don't have any regrets over that because I learned a lot about psychology through that, because trading is a very, very psychological game, and you need to have good psychology to be a good trader. So I wouldn't change it. However, I would have probably spent a lot more time putting myself out there on the internet, because it's only when you get the feedback from the world can you actually improve. And I think putting things out into the marketplace is a great way to develop yourself as a person, because you get feedback from people on what they think is good or what they think is bad, and it improves your taste level. A lot of people that don't try stuff in their lives or are willing to put their creations out into the universe, their taste level's shit. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes even when it comes to fashion and things like that, if you wear safe clothes every time you go out and you still look like the way your mum dressed you when you were 12 years old, your fashion's never going to get to a level that is at an elite level. And some people might look at me wearing this jumper and think I look like a gimp. Well, fuck you, for one. I like it as well, thank you.
It's got a nice feel to it. Yeah.
But I would never, like, when I was maybe younger, I probably wouldn't have put this on. Do you get what I'm saying? Just out of fear of what people would think. Yeah. But I think going out there, experimenting, and being, like, it allows you sort of shorten the process of just getting more comfortable in your own skin, and your taste level improves, and you be able to put things together a lot more. So I definitely just think I probably would have put myself out there a lot more when I was 20. Yeah. But what about yourself? What would you have done differently?
To be honest, a couple of things I would have done. Probably one was not worry so much about. So when it comes to what people think, obviously I had a TikTok. I think it was about 1920 where, started racking up followers, and I had that massive fear of what people thought. And one day I saw all of my all at one go. Everyone started following me I knew from school, and I was like, oh no, I was talking about some weird stuff on the internet. I was thinking, like, I literally had the thought, I'm going to delete my account. That's how quote unquote kind of embarrassed I was. And then I thought to myself, why would I delete my account for people why would I do that? Why do I care so much? And then all that anxiety just kind of faded. And then over time, I noticed that no one cares. I was like, what the hell? Like, especially with what I talk about, right? It's kind of a taboo topic. I was like, no one actually gives a crap. Like, no one even cares. So that was a big thing for me. So I was quite fortunate in that sense. So that helped me. Obviously, still something I work on. But the main things I would say was probably, to be honest, I think, well, obviously I got into a relationship when I was 20. So I'd say it's difficult for me to say, I wouldn't have done that, because I definitely learned a lot of very, very valuable things that I now have that have allowed me to be the person I am. So it's hard for me to say that I wouldn't have done that. However, I do think I could have used a lot of that time that was in that relationship, because a lot of it was very unproductive and very kind of pleasure seeking, you could say. I think if I'd have used that time to really, absorb it. The one thing I'm really into right now is book reading. Like, you might have seen in my stories, I'm always buying these books, because I now understand that knowledge really is power. And the more you know, the more you can kind of navigate and make smart decisions. And if you don't know, you just don't know. Like, you can't really do much with that. So I would have used that time of my early 20s to really just dive in and just open up my mind and ask questions, try different things, but more from a, productive, business entrepreneurial sort of productivity sense, rather than, trying, the more social side aspects. But I think a balance of two is good, but I think I would have definitely done more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the main thing. I mean, other than that, I'd probably say that would have been the main thing. I would have said to myself, look, Ben, focus, mate. Like, all this fun stuff, it's all well and good, but you need to just be willing to work. If you really want to get to where you're trying to go, you need to realize that you do need to make sacrifices, and it's not always going to be the most pleasant, but in the long run, you'll thank yourself. That's what I would say.
Do you think that you could have made the sacrifices at that time? Because what I'm getting from what you're saying is that you are focused on women, essentially, and your relationship, as opposed to being focused on business. Do you think you could have focused on business, given that you had a void of wanting a relationship and wanting to date more? Or did you need to go through that phase of essentially getting it out of your system before you could actually go on to making money and focusing on business and your career and what you want to do?
I would say that's a very, very good question. I'd say probably I needed that void to be filled, to be honest.
I agree with that.
But I think what I did was I filled that void up to the point where, you get to the point where that void has been filled, and then you're still kind of like trying to fill a hole that's already filled.
Dopamine is a hell of a drug, man.
And it's like maybe just, again, like following your intuition and like just knowing when the time's up and just like acting on that, even if it's a difficult decision to make. Like that's probably what I would have done, because I think I did need that. I think I needed to just like, there was like that, like you said, that void. But after that, disconnect and just get focused, and that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, but I could have been there, you know, maybe a year and a half ago. So, but that, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, as they say, and you can't dwell and relish on the negatives by any means. Like everything's to play for, you know.
Final message, guys: focus on yourself, King.
Yeah, that's it. Focus on yourself.
But it's been a pleasure as always.
Handshake, I like it.
And guys, we'll be back at some point in the future. If there's any topics that you want us to cover, let us know, and we'll be sure to do so in future episodes. Thank you very much. Cool.